Coming up next on Medical Matters, we will be hearing from 4 community members who will tell us their dramatic tales of real-life medical miracles. So stay tuned.
Medical Matters is made possible in part by Halifax Health. Since 1928, Halifax Health has focused on offering the community quality, innovative health care. We're proud to serve Central Florida with over 500 physicians, skilled clinicians, and the latest medical technology.
Hi, I'm Dr. Warren Hirsch, and today we have a very special program, Medical Miracles. 4 extraordinary people will tell their stories of near-death experiences, dramatic diagnosis, and how sheer determination combined with today's advanced medical capabilities have given them a new lease on life. Now remember that the information that you hear on this program should not take the place of your personal doctor's advice. This is a pre-recorded program, so if you have any questions about what is discussed on the show, then you may submit them to us by going online at www.wdsctv.org and clicking on Medical Matters. This patient actually died on the operating table. Michael McClure, a 60-year-old Port Orange resident, thought he was healthy until sudden symptoms like heartburn, exhaustion, and indigestion brought him to the emergency department. Let's hear Michael's story now. Now let me ask you, you had something that really a lot of people share with you and unfortunately will continue to share, and that's having a heart attack. And can you tell me what led up to that heart attack? What were you doing? What happened?
I just felt like I had a little indigestion, possibly a little heartburn. And I'm not one that has stomach problems at all, so I thought Sunday night that it could be something other than just your stomach. So I took 2 bare aspirins before I went to bed. I got up and went to work on a Monday morning, and about 9 o'clock in the morning, the pain became severe. It was a deep feeling, not like a shallow feeling. It was a deep feeling in my chest. I went out to my car. I sat in my truck, turned on the air conditioner to kind of get rid of the sweats that I had. I got 2 aspirin, and I took those 2 aspirin. I called a fellow worker over, and I said to him, I said, Gary, if I feel better in about 30 minutes, I want you to take me to the hospital. I think I'm having a heart attack. And I said, if I pass out, I want you to call 911. About that time, I thought better of it, and I said, go ahead and call 911. They took me in the ambulance, and as I arrived, they took me directly into the emergency room. When I told my wife that I was having a heart attack, she just about went down on the floor. It was just a few minutes then when I told her I loved her. I gave her a kiss. I hugged my son, and I told him, get back there and take care of your daughter. They started to wheel me down to the cath lab, and Dr. Jamadar said, well, I'm Dr. Jamadar. We're going to take you down there and find out what's wrong. They got me to the cath lab, and they said, now we're going to work down in your groin area here. We'll do a little shaving, and then we're going to stick the catheter in and find out what's going on. And I said, okay. I had a little bit of anxiety coming on at that time. When they laid me out on the table, they kind of spread your arms out and had a young lady on this left-hand side and a young man on this right-hand side. And the young man and I started to carry on the conversation while they started to prep me. I felt the catheter go in. It was cold, and I said, wow, that thing's cold. He says, it'll be fine in just a minute. He says, but I'm Dr. Jamadar. I'm going to go in, find out what's wrong, and I'm going to fix it. And I laid back and said, well, let's rock. It didn't take too long before I could feel it, like I say, start into me. I just remember that when they hit me with the paddles the first time, that my heart was dead, but my head wasn't. And I screamed, and I threw a bunch of people off me. I later heard it was possibly 12 people that I threw off. I bruised my forearm, I bit my tongue, and bruised my arm as I did it. I felt the second hit, and I felt the third hit, and then I was very peaceful. I don't know how long I was gone. Some people ask me about that, when you're gone, what it's like. And to me, it was very peaceful. I was reciting the 23rd Psalm in my head. And it wasn't like it was bright, but it was like when you close your eyes, you always see something. It was light. I felt very, very bright, very warm, very, very safe. And I don't know how long I was gone, but they did hit me 14 times with those paddles. They burnt the hair off of my chest and under my arm. I do remember waking up, and when I woke up, the first thing I said was, "Ow, how many of those stitches you're going to pull in?" And that's where they put the sheath in my other leg to put a heart pump in to give my heart a chance to work through this trauma. Sometime during the episode, and it was finished, Dr. Jamadar came to the waiting room and told my son and my wife that I had a massive heart attack, that I was 100% clogged, and now I was 100% clear. And my son said, "That doesn't make any sense." And he says, "Well, when we stuck the catheter in, we broke something off, a piece of plaque, and it plugged him up 100%. And I guess you heard the respiratory alert. He was in severe trauma, and he's back again." And Tim says, "Well, what do you mean he's 100% clear?" So we got a heart pump working to help clear him and clear him out. So through the grace of God and his hand of having that team there, it really saved my life. I stayed there till Tuesday, and then they moved me down Tuesday night or Wednesday morning. It was Tuesday night, down to the second floor. The second floor is where the cath lab is. So I got up early in the morning, and I walked down to the corner of my room, looked down the hall, and I looked down the end of the hall, and there was a girl going to work in the cath lab that saved my life. When I saw her, I said, "I hope I didn't hurt you." And she said, "You threw me across the room and you weren't even alive." And so I said, "Well, I'm sorry, I hope it didn't hurt you, but I just want to thank you for saving my life." The things that Dr. Jamadar told me, says, if you would not have taken those 2 aspirin, you probably wouldn't have made it here.
What made you take the 2 aspirin? Did you just do it on your own, or did somebody tell you?
Well, you see the ads on TV all the time, and you know that aspirin, well, I do know that the aspirin thins the blood and helps promote circulation. Don't dismiss it. If you feel like you have indigestion or a deep feeling, or your arm radiates and it seems like it's going to your heart, or you just don't feel right, don't dismiss it. Get somebody to look at it. Get somebody to check it right away, because especially if you've had heart disease in your family. And my dad had died at age 58 of a massive heart attack. And I had another friend tell me that when he went to the emergency room one time, says, "We've had a few people come in with Pepto-Bismol, still pink around their mouth, where they thought they were having indigestion, and it turned out to be a heart problem."
All your years of life, you've been pretty active, right? And
Yes, I have.
sports and something. So I think it'd be interesting to hear you describe, we were talking about this earlier, that you get sore muscles from running too much or too quick, or playing sports or baseball or tennis or softball or whatever. And the pain that you had from your chest that you talk about that radiated, how would you describe that pain compared to just a muscle soreness? What was it like?
Yeah, that's a very important thing, that as an athlete, you know that if you bruise yourself or if you pull a muscle, it feels like it's on the surface. It doesn't feel like it's deep inside you. There's only one cardio muscle in your body, and that's your heart, and it will let you know a different way. It'll be a different feeling, but don't dismiss it, even if it's a little one, because I've done a lot of things that I've had a lot of pain playing sports, turning an ankle, sitting at home in ice all night long, so you didn't want to go to the emergency room. You wait to go see the orthopedic guy. It only felt like a 2 in comparison to a 1 to 10 ratio, so it wasn't like it was a severe pain.
Now, obviously, many people, especially in the United States, suffer heart attacks. A lot of people, unfortunately, don't make it. Why do you think you did? Why do you think you survived? Have you ever reflected back on that?
Yeah, I certainly have. Like I said earlier, Dr. Jamadar pointed out the aspirin, and we expounded upon that. If I'd have been more than an hour away from the hospital, I probably wouldn't be here. If that piece of plaque would have broke free at any other time, except during the time that they put that catheter in me, I wouldn't be here. They wouldn't have been able to bring me back. My wife calls me Lazarus now. But it's the grace of God and the teamwork of those people that God gave them the gift of the healing that they did in that cath lab and the dedication to what they did, not to give up on me. I've been heard that 3 or 4 hits of the paddle is all they usually give a person, and yet they hung with me to bring me back to life.
It's an amazing story. Last question. Do you have to do anything different now? Do you have to alter your lifestyle with certain medications, with exercise, with certain diet? Are you aware of that you have to do something different, or are you able to continue on as you were before, playing sports and pretty much going back to the way it was before the heart attack?
I haven't slowed down a bit.
And I'm sure you look at every day when that sun comes up and just feel glad to be alive, glad to be able to participate in life and with your family and enjoy many years ahead.
I thank you, and yes, I do. It's just rewarding to know that there are people out there with the training that can handle a situation like that and make it work.
Okay, we've just heard from Michael and his amazing story. Now stay tuned and let's hear another medical miracle. This is not just a story about one miracle, but two. 36 weeks pregnant, Tiffany Taylor was hit head-on in her car by another driver. Now, Tiffany, you had definitely a very tragic experience. Can you tell me what happened? What led up to that auto accident? What were you doing and what happened?
Well, I had been at my dad's house, just another normal day, was leaving on my way home. It was about 4 in the evening right after. Got about 2 blocks from his house and was coming around this curve and saw this truck coming straight at me. There wasn't much time to react. I honked my horn and slammed on the brakes, and before I even had a chance to swerve, he was in my, right at me. I didn't realize that he had fallen asleep at the wheel. I thought, he was coming around the curve, just maybe had looked down, didn't realize the road had turned, and, would of course look up and realize to get back into his lane, and it didn't quite happen like that. So the only thought I had was, I'm pregnant and my baby, and here comes this car straight for me, so.
Now, Tiffany, immediately after the accident, what do you remember? Were you hurt? Were you conscious?
I had never been in an accident before, and I've always been taught if you're in an accident to get out and get away from the car. It could explode, there could be a fire. So that was my first reaction, was to try to get out and get away from the vehicle because it had filled up with smoke, which was from the airbag. It was the dust, I guess. So I immediately tried to get out of the vehicle, and when I did go to open the door, first of all, it barely opened, but I was able to push it open. When I tried to move, my body didn't follow behind me. My leg was, I didn't even realize it had been broken. When I didn't move, I looked down and tried to move my leg with me, and it was just flopping with the wind pretty much. My femur had actually broken, and I didn't realize it at the time, but it was bad. I hollered, and the gentleman, the man that actually hit me, I had him come over and pull me out of the car, which was about the worst thing I could have done because it was July 10th, the middle of summer in Florida, and about 1,000,000 degrees outside on the black asphalt. So now I'm laying on the ground, looking up at the sun, and had to wait.
And you actually didn't go in the ambulance to the hospital, did you?
No, goodness. They actually landed a helicopter on a street right next to where I was. That was exciting because as they're loading me in, the gentleman that would be in the helicopter with me tells the paramedics that I cannot have the baby in the helicopter, that there's no room to deliver me, so that if I go into delivery, well, I just can't. That was the only option I had. There was no other option, so.
So when you so where'd they take you? They took you in the helicopter, and it probably was a pretty quick flight, and where did they take you to?
I was in and out through the flight. It wasn't too long. It was only about 10-15 minutes probably. But they did take me to Daytona, to Halifax. They landed me there and then put me in the ambulance and got me right into the ER, the trauma unit.
And when you got to the hospital and you got down to the emergency department, what do you remember? What happened? What were the doctors doing? What were the nurses doing?
Oh goodness. Well, yeah, I watched those trauma shows at home and could never imagine being in that position. And of course, till that day, and that's exactly what it is. There's just a million people in and out. They're cutting my clothes off. They're asking everybody questions. How old am I? How far along I am? Had my water broken? Am I feeling contractions? Can I feel anything? It did send me into premature labor. I was on so much pain medication already. When they did tell me that I started having contractions, they asked me if I could feel them, and I said no, and that they were going to send me in for an emergency C-section. I myself, being my first child, had never thought ever about having a C-section, or of course nobody thinks this is going to happen to them. So had no clue about how a C-section, the real details about, what goes on with a C-section. So of course I was scared, but again, my concern was, is she going to be okay?
When Emily was born, did they show her to you right away? Were you conscious? Were you awake?
Well, they told me that, of course, they thought they would be moving her, and it was kind of up and down for a little while, and then finally they did let me know that they were definitely going to be taking her out to Orlando, which was, of course, heartbreaking for me to, not to be able to see her at first, hold her hear my voice, or hear her cry, and then to know that she was going to be, halfway almost across the state from where we were in Daytona. It was very heartbreaking. They thought at first it was going to be much worse. She pulled through so quick. She is such a fighter. I tell you, she's a spunky little girl. If it weren't for that, I don't think that it would have gone as well. She was, they had her hooked up to all these tubes and through her stomach. They had breathing things down her throat. So there was a lot of complications. And again, they did think that she would be in the hospital for at least a month. But with prayer and good doctors, she was out within 8 days.
Within 8 days?
Yes, sir.
That's amazing.
Absolutely.
I could only imagine the emotions of that reunion. When Emily came home and you and your fiance and now Emily are all reunited at home.
It was a great day. It was the best day that I can recall. It was a great feeling to know that we were all there and together, and that she was home where she belonged.
Makes you realize that not just prayer, but the advancement of medical technology, the help of the doctors, the supporting staff, and the capabilities of the hospital and things that they're able to accomplish makes a believer out of you, right?
Oh, absolutely. Thank goodness for the medical advancements and where we are today. Years ago it might have been a different outcome.
Here you are with your whole future ahead of you, and we really thank you for coming and sharing your story with everyone.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful to meet you today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, we will be hearing from Venus Day. After experiencing a rapid loss of eyesight and severe headaches, Venus went to the emergency department and soon found out she had a life-threatening tumor that was crushing her optic nerve. Now, let's hear Venus's story. Now, what a shock that must have been. You were basically going on, leading a normal life, normal sight, everything rolling right along, and then all of a sudden, some tragic event hit and you weren't able to see. Is that right? Tell me what happened.
It was a really big shock. You wake up one morning and your vision starts to disappear. And I just noticed that in my left eye, I couldn't see anymore. And so I went to the ophthalmologist thinking, maybe there's something wrong. Kind of, when your vision goes, you kind of know there's something wrong. Mm-hmm. And he did a bunch of tests and thought maybe it's an allergy because he couldn't find anything wrong with my eye. So he said, well, wait a few days and we'll see what happens. And then next thing I know, the vision starts to disappear in my right eye. And that's when I went back to the ophthalmologist and we were like, this is no allergy.
And when you were noticing that your eyesight was starting to deteriorate, what were you feeling like? Were you nervous? Were you scared? Were you thinking something's wrong with you? What were you thinking?
I thought, my gosh, is this, I'm going blind? What am I gonna do? Oh my God. You know, and you think to yourself, I don't want to be a burden on people. And that's the first thing that went through my mind was, I don't want to be a burden on anybody.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Well, it's hard. Well, you know, because, you know, you go through life and you think, I got to take care of my family. Well, I was taking care of other people. Who's going to take care of them if something happens to me? So that's kind of how it was when I first started. My vision disappeared because I was like, what am I gonna do?
Did you tell your family right away? Were they involved with you during these doctor's visits and trying to see also what they could do to help and what your treatment might be?
Well, it was pretty bad because they didn't. It was a really big shock for them too, because when I found out, they found out. Because when I went to see the ophthalmologist, he was like, I think you might have a tumor. You need to go see a neurologist. And then that evening, that's when I went to Halifax. And that's when they caught the tumor. And they said, you know, you have a Lyme-sized tumor in your head. And boom, you know, you're like, okay, you have to tell everybody, you have to make arrangements, and then you have to, like, you know, you have to turn off your emotions, because you're like, if I have emotions and if I have to, like, be strong, you know, you have to make sure that everybody else is strong so that you can't show any weakness. And so it was really, really tough the first few days finding out, because they had to admit me right away and everything.
It must have been. How long ago were you diagnosed with the tumor?
Believe it or not, just like 4 weeks ago.
Oh my gosh.
And then they operated it, you know, a week later. Yeah.
So they told you they needed to do surgery, right? That was the next step?
Yeah, and they said that you guys had the best surgeons and best doctors in the area. So I was like, knock wood, that was like the best thing. Because, I mean, I had no idea. I had no idea where to go. And they were telling me about how Dr. Vinyas was the best surgeon, and all your staff and all the supporting doctors, all the hospitalists that were going to see me and everybody.
And when you came out of the surgery, did you immediately see? What did they tell you? How long did it take before you started seeing differences in your vision?
I guess maybe a day and a half after surgery, I started seeing things that I couldn't see before. It wasn't really clear, but it was bright. And I remembered getting a headache because it was so much for my brain to process. And you spend all this time in the dark, then all of a sudden somebody opens a bright light. You're like, wait a minute, I don't want to look at it. But then I was like, oh, I want to see all this light. But
how long would you say it took from the surgery to the time you pretty much are seeing like you're seeing?